emergency?
I need somebody at my apartment. My son is overdosed.
Yeah, I'm gonna lift him up.
90 to 95% of our calls are drug related.
He's not breathing. He's not breathing.
It's really sort of Russian roulette at this point as to what's inside.
Good evening, I'm Miranda Combs and welcome to WKYT Investigates. Tonight, the state of addiction in Kentucky. There's not a single person in this state that hasn't been in some way affected by the drug epidemic, including the people that work behind me, and also the first responders that bring overdose victims to hospitals across the state. First responders are seeing the brunt of the epidemic by not only trying to save lives, but also trying to understand the addiction.
We don't always get this close to police evidence, but our scheduled sit down with Kenton County Police landed us in the middle of a death investigation. These plastic and paper bags hold the clues of something all too familiar to this force.
A female, I believe in her 50s, known heroin user.
We did end up getting that sit-down interview, but it ended up being on the second overdose run of the day.
It's an unfortunate reality. You know, why this area and why that prevalent in this area, that's for somebody else other than me to determine.
Something about our cameras usually stops the action. Ride-alongs with police are almost always an automatic quiet shift for officers, but not today.
The sheer prevalence of it, 90 to 95% of our calls are drug-related.
Christopher Haddle has been an officer with Kenton County PD for 21 years. You can tell by the way he navigates the narrow back roads, this is familiar. But what he's seeing on calls lately isn't familiar. It's frightening.
It just says to me that this job is even more dangerous than having a gun pointed at you or having somebody try to hit you with a car. It's just another indirect danger that we have to deal with on a daily basis.
Specifically, fentanyl.
If we get exposed to those, they're actually dangerous from an airborne standpoint.
A drug he and fellow first responders are seeing mixed with heroin, and sometimes it's just straight fentanyl.
Then how did you take it? You snorted it? Okay.
This call is exactly what first responders fear.
Fentanyl. She admitted to snorting it. Ma'am, do you have any more fentanyl around you? Did you use everything you had? Or we found some residue to support what she said, that she crushed it and snorted it.
That means any of the people around her could have been exposed.
The needle isn't just the hazard anymore. It's substances, it's residue, it's whatever could be laying around. That can be absorbed into our skin or anybody's skin. And that's a danger.
At a time when the drugs are getting more and more deadly, the ripple effect is hurting those that are there to help.
But yes, deep down it gets frustrating.
If a patient decides to be taken to the hospital, many times they will be back out on the street in a matter of minutes and back to their addiction. Others, though, will stay in the hospital for months.
Okay, I'm gonna lift him up.
A heart disease has taken over patient loads for cardiologists all over the state. Endocarditis is an infection in the heart valve that happens when dirty needles are used. Endocarditis is no joke. It can easily kill, and if it doesn't, many times open heart surgery to replace the heart valves and weeks of antibiotics are required. The majority of patients are typically in their early 20s. This has become new territory for cardiologists.
These infections get on these valves, they stick to these valves, and then with time these infections progress and they actually destroy the valves. It just kind of breaks your heart that these young people are doing this to their bodies.
The University of Kentucky has started a new program for patients that are staying in the hospital for long periods of time for endocarditis. They're starting rehab with medication-assisted treatment, hoping if they start it while they're in the hospital, there'll be a better chance that they'll continue once they leave. There are many kinds of treatment, and we've learned one thing doesn't work for everyone. But we found something that worked for one man at the Isaiah House, a rehab facility in Washington County. They used the Bridge device, which is an instrument cleared by the FDA for acute pain treatment. It's said to bring almost immediate relief to an opioid detox. This man is still having success after 6 months. Still to come on WKYT Investigates, the problem is so bad we get calls about it all the time. Overcrowded jails, and county and state officials can't seem to agree on a solution. And later, it feels like heroin would be the most used drug in Kentucky, but an old name has made a new, more potent appearance.
A lot of homes have a flag hanging. It's understood there's national pride, but the stories behind the flags sometimes are history-making.
That's me. Then, I don't look a lot different, do I?
Thought it was you now.
60 years ago, Jody Rife was a screaming eagle.
101st Airborne was always ready. We could move on an hour's notice.
They were trained for war, but instead sent on a mission involving their own country.
You don't forget things like that.
And an internal battle.
Several of the 26 C-130 aircraft, which brought paratroopers from the 101st Airborne Division to Little Rock, Arkansas, based from Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
The job was to escort the Little Rock 9, integrating an all-white school in Arkansas. It would be a major event in the American Civil Rights Movement.
They came in station wagons primarily. They brought them to the school. We met them at the sidewalk and escorted them to their room. We stayed with them all day.
Rife spent about 10 days escorting the 9 to and from school, trying to calm an atmosphere of resistant change.
They had kids putting lighted cigarettes down those kids' back. They had bruises from where people had kicked them.
The troops alternated who they escorted as not to get attached. But for Rife, there was one student.
She looked pitiful, you know, she did. And so I just said, you know, this is my responsibility.
Rife escorted Minnie Jean Brown for 2 days. He says he was supposed to stay outside her classroom.
I wasn't supposed to go in the room. But she came to the door and asked me to come in, that some kid had tripped her. And you know, you got to realize, I've got a carbine, you know, and so I said, move your foot.
Over the days, Rife and Minnie Jean Brown would exchange simple conversation.
But on the way down the sidewalk, she drops a note. She wanted me to pick it up. So I did, I just stuck it in my pocket. That's what she scribbled that note on there, just thank you so much for watching over me and protecting me when I needed it.
Years and decades passed. That mark in history, though, remained.
So I just decided I would see if I could contact her and see if she remembered me.
Rife found Minnie Jean Brown's email and sent her a quick note. She quickly responded.
I remember you and the events as if it were yesterday. When I saw your name, all I could feel was how you actually saved my life. There was this person who was nice to me, whether by orders or by choice, didn't matter.
Rife and Brown still correspond every now and then about family and work and life, not by orders, but by choice. In Lexington, Miranda Combs, WKYT.